and that essentially kills Netscape. They do a couple different things. It's not the only thing that Microsoft does. They know how Netscape is making their money. They know it's through server software. So what does Microsoft do? They give away server software. Microsoft is extremely lucrative. They're making tons of money. They don't really need to get money from Internet Explorer, and they don't really need to get money from the server software. So they give those away, and they essentially suffocate Netscape. They take away all of its oxygen, so to speak, all of its revenue. They also, Microsoft works with lots of different computer manufacturers, and they actually require that these manufacturers ship the computers with IE on it. And if they don't, then they increase the prices to put Windows on them. They do other ways, other methods of ensuring that all these machines are shipped with IE already installed and with no competing browsers installed. They let ISPs, so Internet Service Providers, rebrand IE. So they can make sort of their own version of it, just be IE, but with their special logo on it. And this eventually leads to them cutting a deal with AOL, where AOL had been using Netscape. And then AOL moves to Internet Explorer. And nowadays, I mean, AOL, nobody uses it, but at the time it was huge. There were tons of users at the time, millions of users, and so that was a big deal, and that definitely hurts Netscape. And then lastly, Microsoft bundles Front Page with a lot of its products, a lot of its Office products, and they specifically design Front Page to write code that only loads properly in Internet Explorer. This was actually intentional, and so you had this web authoring software that could do some pretty cool things for the time, and it would specifically write code that would not load properly in Netscape. And so, just sort of all of these just slowly kill Netscape. And so, just a little bit of background about Netscape before, it died. It was originally released in 1994. It was based on Mosaic, as we already mentioned. When it became an IPO, when it was first offered to the public to buy shares and stuff, it had a market value of $2 billion. The stock was originally released, I think, around like $26 a share, and that was way low. It shot up like over $72 a share, and that was huge at the time. This was the most valuable stock, the most valuable asset on Wall Street ever at this point in time. Some have probably overshot it by now, I'm sure. Microsoft probably has, Google probably has, but at the time, this was the biggest thing, the most valuable asset ever. And Netscape has been killed, but it's not entirely dead. What it's based on, the source code of it, is called Mozilla. And that might sound familiar because a lot of you guys, and we normally use on here, Mozilla Firefox. And so its spirit, so to speak, lives on through browsers today. Internet Explorer was released in 1995, about a year later, more or less. It effectively killed Netscape. Its peak usage was in 2002 and 2003 with something ridiculous like 95% of internet users were using Internet Explorer at this time. But not the case anymore. It lost the lead in 2012 with around 33 or so % of users using it. And I think it lost the lead to Firefox. So a little bit of retribution there, but it might have been Chrome. I don't remember exactly. I think it was Chrome, actually. But I've got a chart in here later, so you'll see that. So some of those tactics that Microsoft was involved in definitely caused lawsuits. And so I'm not talking about all the Microsoft legal issues. I'm only talking about the ones related to Internet Explorer. So I should probably just go ahead and fix that. IE, Internet Explorer legal issues. But here's just the ones related to IE. So 1997, they had to pay $8 million to Spyglass. So Microsoft had worked with Spyglass. They had licensed its browser, which included being able to load tables, which we're looking at right now. And in addition to licensing it, or part of licensing it, they said that we will give them a percentage of each sale. Well, Microsoft started giving the software away for free with Windows. They bundled it into the way that Windows worked, and they gave it away for free. So a percentage of each sale, there's no money. They're not selling Internet Explorer. They're giving it away. And so Spyglass set up a lawsuit, and they sued. So they won $8 million. which, I mean, that's quite a bit of money, but for Microsoft, it's nothing. So that wasn't all. Sort of following the whole killing of Netscape, there was a court case, the United States versus Microsoft, and it was an antitrust law. So a lot of these practices were definitely noticed. They were brought into court for antitrust, for abusing their power, for making sort of a monopoly and enforcing a monopoly so that users didn't even have a chance, Netscape didn't even have a chance of gaining users, of having a user base, because Microsoft was basically making sure that its product was used and that no other product was used. To the extent that, like, when Netscape died, I think it was around like 2% of users, of internet users, were using it because of these. But their actual penalty wasn't that big of a deal. It was sort of a slap on the hand. They were, I don't know, I don't even remember if they were fined any money. It was basically just sort of like making sure that its source code was open for people to look at, and having like a few people watch over the way that Microsoft was doing things for like 5 years. Like, big deal. So, and I'll link that up on Canvas later if you want to check it out. So that wasn't the only thing. In 2003, you had a lawsuit between Aeolus and Microsoft, and they were claiming that Microsoft had infringed on a patent. There was a patent about being able to include like special content into a website that would have like special effects, special client connectivity. You could do special plugins or applets that would create like sort of like an interactive situation or an interactive environment or an animated environment, and they won. So Microsoft had to pay $520 million for that patent infringement. It was like $1.75 or something per user of Internet Explorer that they had to pay from sort of a certain time period. So that was the total sum. And then just recently, about a year ago, the European Union actually had their own antitrust investigation. And essentially what happened was the EU had dealt with Microsoft before, and they had told Microsoft that when you send out Windows or whatever, you have to give users a choice. You can't force them to use your product. And so they were supposed to offer 11 different browsers when a person set up Windows or when they set up the internet. They're supposed to have that choice. And for a 14-month period, when Windows had some sort of update, they weren't. There was no option. It was just IE. And they said, Microsoft said they apologized. They said it was some sort of bug when the new update rolled out, and they fixed it as soon as they could. But 14 months. And so, because of that, the EU fined Microsoft $730 million. And so these were just a few lawsuits. These were just the ones resulting with IE, but they've had tons of others. There's always sorts of these practices that Microsoft involves in to gain advantage in the market, and they're often frowned upon. So here's sort of the browser wars that we can see up to 2009. We can see here Internet Explorer gaining a lot of percentage of users. And we can see Netscape here. We can see how it just absolutely dominated in 1996. And we just don't have anything further back on this chart. But, you know, they were definitely king for a while. With, you know, in this chart, almost 90% of the user base. I guess about 80% of the user base. You could see IE was extremely small. And this was coming on the success of Mosaic, following that success. You can see some others in there, very small. And up through 2009, you could see that IE was definitely dwindling, but they still held a market share. If we go to today, you can see here where they lose out to Chrome. And they're kind of neck and neck with Firefox. Firefox hasn't quite overshot them yet. Safari is pretty far down here also. But Safari is pretty much just used on Mac, which is definitely a smaller percentage. Plus, a lot of Mac users prefer Firefox or Chrome anyways, so... But I mean, it's still grown pretty steady as Chrome has shot up, and as Firefox, well, Firefox has remained pretty steady, but you can see some people probably definitely jumped ship to Chrome. Safari has continued to increase, probably in large part due to increased popularity in their products between the iDevices and the Mac itself. And you can see Opera just skimming along the bottom, and you can see the others actually gaining some popularity, just third party that aren't popular enough to put on here, but definitely have a percentage of the total user base. So we can see right now that nobody is really dominating entirely, although Chrome, I mean, Chrome is definitely the leader, but no one's even meeting the 50% threshold, which is good overall, because every browser has its insecurities and its security risks, and if any one browser is king, then you're going to have a lot of the population susceptible to whatever those internet security risks are. And that's it for this one.